and the Stick Figure song. And then we heard the final vocals for the Stick Figure song. And we were like, dude, this is going to be a tough conversation, but like, what if we just redid every single song?
Hey,
What's
Jacob,
up,
how are
buddy?
you, man?
How's everything?
Going well. How about you?
I'm doing good in the middle of a heat wave in Florida with the AC that works about 40% capacity, but other than that, everything's good.
That's good. I just moved to Nashville a few months ago, and it's like totally downpouring. Like right when I got on the call, I could hear it was like like thudding on the roof because it's just like flooding out right now. So
yeah.
We both have the humidity.
Yeah.
So, but I did see you're originally from Arlington, Virginia.
Yep.
What was it like growing up there?
Arlington is a really cool place. It's kind of one of the first suburbs of DC. So my dad worked for the IMF. So he would take the metro in every day and then come back at night. And Arlington's great. It's expensive as hell nowadays. It wasn't when I was a kid.
That's what I've heard. It's interesting how that little triangle, like the DMV triangle there, how some of those places are so expensive.
It's like the same thing that happened in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like it's like New York prices nowadays. Yeah. So my hat's off to all the guys still living there.
So you're there. Didn't your family move to Africa for a while? Did I read that or no?
Monrovia, Liberia. Yeah, when I was a kid, 6 and 7. Yeah.
What was that like?
It was kind of like the coolest thing ever. I remember my first memory kind of in life is of my dad's record player, and my second memory is of moving to Africa and like a box of my toys hadn't showed up or something. And I was like, I thought the world was over. Of
course.
And I looked out the window of the car and there was a kid and all he had was flip-flops, shorts, and a paring knife to peel oranges. And he had the biggest smile on his face I had ever seen. And then I thought about myself, of course. And I was like, wait a minute, there might be something wrong with me.
I thought you were gonna say that he had your box of toys in his hand.
No, it was cool, man. It was cool. It was kind of the origins of, I guess, starting a reggae band, maybe.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you said the first memory you have is your dad's record collection.
Yeah, a lot of Paul Simon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what kind of drew you into music? Was stuff your dad was listening to?
My dad taught me how to play piano and then taught me how to play guitar. My dad was from a small town family in Clarinda, Iowa. And they didn't have TV, so after dinner, they'd play music together. So we know how to do everything, like harmonize and who took the alto, who took the baritone, the soprano, all that stuff. So I learned all that, from him.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really, really cool. Well, how old were you when you played or picked up piano and guitar?
I guess I was maybe 11 at piano and maybe 12 or 13 at guitar.
Okay. And you were obviously already back in Arlington at this point.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And you started the band. I mean, the band kind of formed or you've been playing with these guys for what, since like 90s, right?
Me and the bass player have been doing talent shows since 7th or 8th grade.
Wow.
Yeah, we did Tap the Bottle by YBT. And then the next year we did The Mystery of Chess Boxing by WuTang Clan.
What? No way.
Yeah. So
that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. I was just listening to 36 Chambers like a couple of days ago.
Still the best hip hop record anyone's ever made. Yeah.
I know. Well, between that and Forever.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Which is, by the way, the only 2 records they ever made.
Right. Exactly. They didn't exist after that. That 2000 record never happened.
Right. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So did you rap the parts? Like, how do you even cover a WuTang song?
We sorry, I'm dabbing my face like
Oh, dude, no worries.
the AC is no good here. We started as, I guess, rappers maybe in the beginning. And then I went to a reunion. My family has reunions every 2 years. So every 2 years, it's at like a different lake house or like with a bunch of cabins, and there's like water in the middle normally. And my cousin Steven gave me a UB40 tape.
Okay.
And I was freaking out, so I brought it home and I played it for Bobby Lee. And then after that, it was just reggae.
Really?
Yeah.
And then talk about full circle. You have them on the new record, right?
Yeah.
That's
kind of
crazy.
the coolest thing that ever happened.
That is amazing. So when does SOJA start? Around that same time?
I guess 18 maybe. We had a couple bands before SOJA. But yeah, around 18, 19, I think we started. Well, no, we were in high school because we were playing in Bird's basement of my dad's garage. So I guess 16. But then when I went to college, I didn't go away to college. I went to GMU, which is right by Arlington.
Okay.
And then as soon as college was over, we just hit the road, and that was it.
Did you go to GMU for music or something totally different?
No, I went for writing.
Oh, really? Like creative writing?
Nonfiction political writing. I wanted to write for the Washington Post.
Really? That's cool. I mean, I'm sure you were around politics quite a bit in that area, right?
It's kind of part of the area.
Yeah. So you went for that, and then the band was always just happening as college went on.
We were doing like bar gigs on the weekends and stuff, and then yeah, as soon as college was over, we were just off and running, and that was it.
You didn't try to pursue the writing. You just went, you know what, this band's doing something.
I did. I just wrote for this band instead of for the Post.
There you go. So what like after you finished college, was the band like, did you have some, successes that led up to you going like, okay, let's take this on the road? Or like, talk to me about those early days.
The first time we went to Hawaii, we saw ourselves on a billboard in the newspaper at the hotel. We were on the radio. We couldn't believe it. And so after that, we were like, okay, maybe it's time to we start quitting our jobs and stuff. And then we went to Brazil, and our first show was I think it was like a airplane hangar. And my drummer Bird said, watch, there's going to be like 20 people here. And it was sold out. There was like 4,000 people there, our first show in Brazil. So Brazil and Hawaii were kind of the two places that we were like, oh man, this is really happening.
Something's happening. What year was that? Do you remember?
I guess Hawaii was 2000, was it 26? So 2007, I guess around 2005, 2006 is when stuff started to get kind of crazy.
Was that when Get Wiser came out, or before that?
About Get Wiser, yeah.
Okay, so that's when
Born
it
in
started.
Babylon was I think the main one that kind of launched it was Born in Babylon, but Get Wiser was popular for sure.
Sure. So Born in Babylon was what really, got the ball rolling for you.
That was the one that had Here I Am and You and Me and stuff like that.
Did you know you were getting radio play when you went to Hawaii, or had no idea?
No. We got with the promoter's a friend of ours. He's the guy who owns Cali Roots, the festival now.
Okay.
But back then he was a local promoter in Hawaii, and he picked us up from the airport with all our gear, and he's driving us to our hotel, and he turns on the radio and it's us.
Oh, wow. What was that moment like?
I mean, dude,
did you think he just had a cassette on or something?
Yeah, it was like, he's faking this somehow. When we started the band, we did it because it was fun. It was what we did after school, and then to hear yourself on the radio in Paradise, you're kind of like, wait, okay, so and then we would go do the shows in Hawaii, and everybody knew the lyrics. And before that, we were a bar band from Virginia, like a couple people knew the lyrics, but we'd go to Hawaii and there'd be thousands of people and they all knew all the words to the songs because we were all over the radio. It was nuts.
That is insane. And then to see a billboard of yourselves and then show up, you know, in Brazil, and you're traveling across all around the world, and people know your band. I can't even imagine that feeling.
It's crazy. It's definitely crazy.
What was it like to get the Grammy nomination? Or two?
It was really cool.
Right?
It was really cool. I'd rather have a Grammy, but it was.
I mean, at least you're invited to the party. Jeez, that's such a huge.
It was amazing. My problem is I went into it expecting to win. Okay. So when it wasn't our name, I like kind of was like, I'm leaving.
I'm a little bit salty about
it. but then we got nominated again, and that time it was a lot easier. The first time you lose hurts, but the second time you lose, you're kind of like, yeah, I was just kind of here to hang out and watch some cool stuff. Ed Sheeran's singing up there. Okay, cool, I'll hang out.
Okay. Did that, when you had, that level, when you're getting nominated for Grammys, were you just seeing the shows go up and up and up as far as size?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't take off quick, but it took off. We didn't really start this to be like known.
Sure.
We did it because we loved it, and reggae was this thing that to us was really special. Mm-hmm. So to see yourself get popular, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. That's so amazing. I mean, for something that you guys had started out, you've known each other since you're kids, and to continue this on for this many years later, that's really something to be said. I mean, that's awesome.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's been what, 4 years since you put a record out?
Yeah, Poetry in Motion was about 4 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. And this album coming out, I had a chance to hear it. It's insane. And the amount of people that you have as far as like features is like incredible. It's like every huge reggae artist ever on the record.
It's everyone that we've like ever toured with.
It's anyone and everyone. I mean, you've got like J Boog and Collie Buddz and Stick Figure and Slightly. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Yeah. Has this been like a 4-year in the making project, or like how quickly were you working on this album?
Well, the virus wasn't around when we started. So we started in a room together, at a studio, the way you normally do it.
Right.
And then after, I guess 18 months ago, nobody could go anywhere or do anything. So we sort of would send music to each other.
Okay.
And it was new, because we're used to doing it in a room together. So we'd send music to each other, but something cool happened that we sort of discovered, is that when no one's looking over your shoulder, like saying, play more of this or do less of that or do it like this, and you don't have a time frame, you can sort of kind of come up with whatever you think is best for that song. So I don't know, the lockdown kind of, sorry, I got to turn this light down. It's killing me. The lockdown kind of helped us create this album in 2 parts, which ended up being really cool. And now we're talking about how we want to keep doing it going forward.
Really? So keep this the same, like
meet up in a room, record for 2 weeks, get the skeleton down, and then everybody splits and you go home and you sit like where I'm sitting right now, and you just go over everything over and over and over with no time limit. There wasn't like, okay, on March 18th, everything has to be in. There wasn't really anything like that. So we could, months would go by and we wouldn't have talked about a song and somebody would come with something for that. And yeah, we kind of want to keep that part going.
That is awesome. So where were you guys when the virus happened? You were working on this record, or were you guys on the road, or?
We were in Costa Rica, and we were playing a show, and we were seeing on the news that people were saying there's a real possibility airports are going to shut down. And so we got on the plane and left. And then I didn't leave my house for maybe 10 months, I guess, after that.
Oh, wow.
We were
That must
like,
have been terrifying to fly. I mean, especially being in a whole other country and then having to fly back to the States. And
it was a little sketchy.
yeah. Wow. Okay. So were you working on the record? Oh, you said you were playing a show in Costa Rica, but you're working on the record here, did like a one-off show, and then you were planning on coming back and finishing the album, and then that happened?
We were doing the record. We were also doing, I think, Japan and some other stuff. But yeah, I mean, everything locked down real fast. Musicians were like the first ones on, and I guess the last ones in, because our profession involves getting 5,000 people to stand right next to each other and breathe on each other.
Right.
So yeah, we were out pretty quick.
Wow. Okay. So how much of the record was complete? You had all the skeleton for the whole album at this point? Or no, not really?
We had like 7 pretty much done. But then, you know, I'll redo the vocals like 3, 4, 5 times on each song as it comes along.
Mm-hmm.
But we were a little over half done with the record. But then the rest of it was just me and a couple of producer friends of mine, and Trevor Young, the guitar player and singer for SOJA, sort of just writing stuff remotely. I mean, this phone I'm on right now, I think it was on for like 4 hours a day for a year and a half, basically, to finish the record. Yeah.
Just doing virtual conversations like this?
Or just talking on the phone and being like, hey, at minute 1, second 12, do with this, and we need one of these, and you know, like that type of stuff.
Wow. And was it hard to collaborate with all the, I mean, you have so many, like we said earlier, just so many collaborations on the record. Like, you know, the Dirty Heads song that you guys put out recently, like, are these like songs you had done and they kind of, you just reached out to people and said, hey, like, do you want to be on this record? I mean, you have like a all-star cast on here.
They're all kind of different, you know, who writes them and the one with Dirty Heads, I was with Jared in Huntington Beach in California, writing out with him and a guy named Denham. But then the Namba Basico feature, we just reached out. They're all kind of different, you know. Sometimes you're with the person, sometimes the person's 6,000 miles away, and you know.
And it was just like, so you'd send them the song or whatever when it was, virtually. So
yeah.
Did you have any of the? And were any of the people that you put on the record? How many of them were added as the virus was happening? Or did you have a pretty good idea who you wanted in the very, very beginning?
I guess during the virus specifically, maybe only a few. Maybe Namba Basico, the guy from Colombia. Okay. And I think Common Kings and Ellie Mac might have been during the virus on the song called Funny. But most of this record was done pre-virus as far as features go, at least the idea. Maybe their finals came later, but the idea was pretty much before.
But you knew who you wanted on the record.
For sure, yeah, for sure.
That is cool. That is cool. And with like, I mean, it sounds like since you've had 40 years to kind of put the record out, like, was there a lot of time in between there? Like, you have, you know, the start of the album and then the virus hits, and now you said you have, you know, no time limit. Was it hard to not like kind of overproduce what you're doing or rethinking yourself? And now you have it sitting there and it's like going back and listening to it and wanting to tweak every little thing. Was that kind of hard to not do?
It can be, but there's a trick I picked up from Eminem and Dr. Dre years ago. They said that they would play the new record for Eminem's daughter, and whatever song, they'd play it through once, and whatever song that she would sing in her head the next day, they were like, that's a single.
Wow.
So I have a friend in Germany, a reggae singer named Gentleman, and he told me, he said, there's 1 million artists in the world, but you're not really an artist unless you know when to put the pen down. And he said that to me maybe 15 years ago. And so I've always been like, look, if I can play something 4 times through and I don't want to change anything, then it's done and it gets moved in my documents folder on my phone. It gets moved to finished. and then the ones where I keep what, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So once it's finished, you don't,
line,
you don't mess with it anymore.
You don't
it's
touch
done.
it anymore. You're like, that's it. That one's done.
Wow. Okay. I can imagine that being hard if it's sitting there and then you're like, okay, well, now that I don't have like a real time crunch to put it out, I'm just going to tweak it.
You want to keep going back and messing with it, but you can't. You got to put it in the finished folder and just leave it alone.
Leave it alone.
Yeah.
And how, like, was the record done, you know, fairly quickly into the pandemic lockdown, or was it something you had worked on for quite a while? And then, like, how do you hold it?
It was maybe 75% finished when we went into lockdown, but then my manager Elliot had an idea to go back and redo pretty much all the vocals on the entire record, because so our buddy Mariano, one of the producers on this record and other stuff we've done, called and he was like, yo, I've been using this new microphone. He calls it the Rihanna mic.
Does Rihanna record with that mic?
And it has like its own power source that like sits in the corner of the room. It's like the Jay-Z mic. Yeah. And so he's like, dude, I got one. And he lives in Miami. I live in St. Pete. And so my manager was like, dude, have him come up and do the stick song and the stick figure song. And then we heard the final vocals for the stick figure song. And we were like, dude, this is going to be a tough conversation, but like, what if we just redid every single song? So for like 3 or 4 of them, we kept the original stuff, but I spent about 2 weeks redoing all the vocals on the entire record.
Well, now you have the Rihanna mic on the record.
Yeah, you got that Jay-Z mic, dude.
That's amazing. Was it like or I'm sure you wanted to after you heard that take, right? To redo it with that microphone?
Yeah, it's not tedious. Were you gonna say tedious?
Yeah, I was gonna say, does it get tedious? Yeah. You'd already done it, and then it's like, okay, now I gotta go back and re-record it all.
My main job as a writer is to subtract things. Like I can write a banger in 5 minutes, and that's how you know it's a banger, is because like 5 minutes later you're done. But then there's a process of removing stuff that's unnecessary, that didn't really need to be said, or you've already said it once, or it's kind of repetitive, or, you know, so no, that part is my favorite part, because it means the inspiration's already down. And now it's just time to edit, basically.
Like, it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And arrange it and produce it and move stuff around and, you know, change everything and stuff like that.
So once you re-recorded all the vocals and the record's done, like how, I mean, the album's coming out next Friday, I believe, or 2 weeks.
September 24th.
Yeah. And so it's coming out on the 24th, and I'm sure you've had it done for a bit. Was it hard to kind of keep the record, or were you in a predicament where it's like, we shouldn't put it out yet because maybe are able to tour it, or was that ever a conversation you had to have?
I mean, I think in the beginning, we thought we knew like the idea of what we wanted to do, like, oh, here's what we should do. But something we learned during this lockdown is we don't really know what the future is going to be like. All we know is what the past was like. And so a lot of these questions we couldn't even really answer. Like, do we save it for when we can tour? Do we release it during? We just knew we had a finished record and we wanted to release it. And that was kind of, and it's my favorite record we've ever done. And a few of the other guys in the band have said that too. And we wanted to release it and kind of, you know, come what may, see what touring looks like.
And do you have a tour? I know you guys are doing that festival in October, right? With like a, you know, bunch of huge reggae artists.
Yeah.
And have you had a chance to play live aside from that show coming up in a month?
We've rehearsed here in St. Pete. I mean, we've all gone to the studio and played, but no, we haven't played live in, I guess, 18 months. Wow. Kind of crazy.
So you haven't played live, but you've played as a band, rehearsed as a band.
Yeah, we played together, just not in front of people.
Not in front of people. Is that going to be the first time you played in front of people?
Yeah.
Wow. There's a lot of artists that, you know, share songs on the record. Is there any plan to bring out people when you play, or is that hush hush?
I think we don't have the final festival lineup, but there's definitely going to be people at these festivals that are going to get up and play for sure. Yeah.
That is cool. And I'm sure you're pretty excited to play for the first time in 18 months.
Just period. Yeah. I just want to go onto a stage and play music. That's it. That's all I want.
Have you seen a show yet or no?
No, Manchester Orchestra is coming here in like 2 weeks, and I'm going to go see them.
Oh, that'll be a great show. I love that band. They're
yeah. They're the best.
That's cool. So you're going to see them. That'll be your first show. And then I'm sure it might be their first show back. I'm sure it's got to be quite an epic experience to be there sharing that moment with a lot of people.
I have no idea what it's going to be like, but it's going to be different. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. That's so cool. That lineup looks insane. And are you touring, doing a tour after that, or?
We probably will. I mean, the industry sort of shuts down like December to end of February normally. So we might just do these 2 festivals in October. And then there's one in November. Cali Roots is doing a Mexico edition of their festival.
Oh, rad.
Yeah. And then other than that, we'll probably plan a tour for spring, I guess. I'm not really sure. It's uncharted waters, man. Nobody knows what's going on.
Right. Yeah, especially with like lockdowns and all that other stuff, maybe.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Well, the record's amazing. What are you most excited about for the album coming out?
You mean song-wise?
Sure. Yeah.
It's tough to say, man. I mean, I have my personal favorites, but I feel like with the amount of time that we were able to put into this, I can't really pick one. I know that sounds dumb and kind of generic, but I really don't know which one I like the most. I know which one is most personal to me.
Which one would that be?
The last song, Fall Like Rain, is a song I wrote about my dad and something he showed me one time in a dream after he passed away.
Wow.
And the love songs, of course, are personal. And then there's some songs about being isolated. It's just, there's some uplifting stuff. There's some stuff about the way life works and how you see it as you get a little older. I kind of covered all the bases with topics on this thing.
Well, it's an amazing album. I think it's so good. And like I said, just the amount of effort it looks like you've put into it. And of course, the people that you've got on the record, I mean, the thing's a home run. So
it was a lot of work, but we're happy it's done.
That is awesome. Are you doing like a release party or anything? I saw you guys are doing like, you can buy like autograph records and stuff like that.
Yeah, we have vinyl stuff, we have autograph stuff, we have crazy hoodies and t-shirts and all the normal stuff that you would do. We got nothing but time, so we just sit around and design all this stuff all day.
That's awesome. Well, Jacob, man, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for calling me.
Yeah, I have one more question for you. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Well, what worked for us is to try to stay in love with what you're doing, because the way it goes is you start as a hobby, and then it's like a hobby that sort of pays, but you still have your job. And then if you're lucky, one day it's just your only job. And then what a lot of times happens to people I see and myself, if I'm not careful, is it becomes only a job and you're no longer in love with it. And you're saying like, well, shit, I Don't Want to Wait was a huge song. We got to make a new version of that. Okay, You and Me was a huge song. We got to make a new version of that. And that's kind of when bands, as they say, quote, fall off, is because they're not in love anymore. And it is their income. So they're trying to recreate periods in their life that don't exist anymore. So you got to remember why, like, you fell in love, I guess, is kind of the secret all the time. And you see that with groups that often are still around. Bringing it backward.